What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to College Football Talk with Peter Burtonette, and it is time for the Week 1 recap. The top story in Week 1, I think it's fairly obvious. It's Coach Prime, it's Shedeur Sanders, it's Travis Hunter, and the Colorado Buffaloes with their big win over TCU. And I'll get to that one later, but first I want to talk about Sunday night's game, a huge ranked matchup, the only top 10 matchup of the opening weekend, and I believe the only ranked matchup of the opening weekend. Florida State, in the first half, that game was very competitive. Went into halftime with a 17-14 LSU lead. Actually, the Tigers were in front, but throughout the game, and especially then in the second half, it was the Keon Coleman show. I'm not sure if he had any receptions after what I had here, but 9 receptions for 122 yards and a hat trick, 3 touchdowns. It was a huge game for the Michigan State transfer. Was just able to get it done in a variety of ways, and obviously, huge credit goes to quarterback Jordan Travis as well for the Seminoles. Absolutely was picking apart the Tigers defense. He did throw an interception, but overall it was a big game for Jordan Travis and for the Seminoles offense as they just ran rampant over the Tigers in the second half, scoring 31 points in the second half, I believe. So a huge win for Florida State. They really set the tone for their season. In a few weeks, they'll be taking on Clemson in Death Valley, so that is obviously a big game. They're going to need to bring the level that they brought today, and they had a couple of guys on defense. One guy, I don't think he actually got credited for a sack, but Jared Verse off the edge, one of the top prospects in this upcoming NFL draft. I think he was number 6 on Mel Kiper's draft board. He had one big play, and really throughout the night he was, dishing out pressure. But he had one play where he got to LSU quarterback Jalen Daniels, forced the ball loose. It was later reviewed and called an incompletion. But one of those things that won't show up in the stat sheet, but from watching the game, really big defensive play, and was a part of that defensive line that provided a lot of havoc. A couple of those other guys, Dennis Briggs Jr., DJ Lundy, Kalen DeLoach, and Shaim Brown were just a couple of other guys. Each of those guys had at least a half a sack or more than that. So a big game for the Seminoles to set the tone. A couple of other observations from the opening week. Washington, Michael Penix Jr. is a legitimate Heisman contender for the Huskies, put up 56 points against Boise State in a dominant win for number 10 Washington. So that's something to keep an eye on. Another thing, this will get into my next point about Colorado, is the Pac-12, for the first time in history, a conference started 13-0 in the opening week. And it's never been done before. I think maybe part of that might be because, I don't know if that's including USC's Week 0 win as well. Not sure about that. Either way, 13-0 is an incredible start for the conference. Playing in its final season to win every single game they played in is a massive accomplishment. And so shout out the Pac-12 for that. And also, final observation, kind of looking ahead a little bit, I'll look to Week 2, although there's really only one game that I have my eyes on. But looking ahead a little bit more, Caleb Williams and Sam Hartman, quarterbacks for USC, obviously reigning Heisman winner Williams, and then Sam Hartman, the Wake Forest transfer, both have put up big numbers in the opening 2 weeks. They've both played 2 games, and so that does skew the yardage and even the touchdowns a little bit, but they've both been highly efficient. Neither one has thrown an interception yet, albeit against lesser competition. Couple, I think, both played either... I know Notre Dame this week played an FCS team, and so again, those numbers are probably a little bit heightened because of the level of opposition, but 2 really good quarterbacks, and they meet on October 14th in a huge game between the Trojans and the Fighting Irish in South Bend. So that is a game I'm keeping my eyes locked in on October 14th. The main story from Week 1, and I wanted to wrap up the video with this because there's a few things that I want to talk about with this, and it's Colorado outlasting TCU in a barn burner, 45-42. The Buffaloes, obviously coached by primetime Deion Sanders, have just so much electricity. I mean, they bring it even, especially off the field, and then once they're on that football field, in between the lines, they absolutely just fly around the field. They make the highlight reel plays, and they give effort too. And just from seeing some of the speeches, I saw one on TikTok of Hall of Fame wide receiver with the Cowboys, Michael Irvin, giving a speech to the team, and then even Coach Prime's pregame speech to the Buffaloes. they are a motivated bunch. They are driven, they are determined, they have massive goals in front of them, and they are going to be a whole lot of fun to watch. And boy, it's tough to say between these two guys who that excitement starts with, but you look at Travis Hunter, his play is unreal. I think he played something like over 110 snaps on offense and defense combined, and his big highlight play to me was that interception, and I might throw it up here. If not, I encourage you to go and watch that. So he's playing the receiver at the line, and he's a little bit off the receiver. I think probably like 5 yards back or something like that. And so he's on the goal line, and when the ball is thrown, the receiver is at the 5. And obviously the ball is thrown a little bit in front of the receiver, and he cuts in. But the just quick like that he gets to the ball and full extension, absolutely leaps out for the play. I mean, it was unreal. I watched it back a couple of times, just replaying it, watching what he did on the play. His ability to read it and to jump into the route to make a very hyper-athletic play was absolutely impressive. And obviously went beyond that. I think he had a pass deflection as well, a couple of tackles, overall good coverage. Defensively, not a great game. TCU has some big options. I mean, or big weapons on offense. You got Chandler Morris, the quarterback, who had a good game. He threw a couple of picks, but 2 touchdowns, 279 yards. His receivers, Jaden Wiley and J.P. Richardson, had big games for the Horned Frogs. And then their running backs, Emily Bailey had 164 yards, and then Trey Sanders ran for 3 touchdowns. So again, defensively, the Buffaloes definitely have some things to work on, but at the same time, TCU is a very, very high-powered offense. The game, I actually didn't get to watch too much of it live. For those who don't know, I'm a sports editor here in Omaha and Council Bluffs, kind of right on the Missouri River, Nebraska and Iowa. So I was out covering some things with that. I actually got to see the reigning JUCO national champions, Iowa Western. They had a very strong defensive showing, and they displayed depth at running back in a win over the number 11 team in the JUCO ranks. But aside from that, big game for Colorado, a lot of excitement for, and going into my next point then, it was the offense. So Hunter, he has the interception and the pass deflection on defense while playing almost every snap. And then on offense, he catches 11 passes for 119 yards. And again, he played something like 50, 60 snaps on offense as well. And so went back and watched that game. That's what I was starting to say last night, actually Saturday night. And, big game from him, but just as impressive and in a different way was the play of Shedeur Sanders at quarterback for the Buffaloes. He was highly efficient, 38 for 45. He threw for a school record 510 yards and 4 touchdowns. And watching his play, it's kind of the 3 Ps, and I'll add a T in there. It's his precision, which kind of goes with the T. It's his touch on the ball, and then power and poise. Each of these areas he absolutely excels at, and it helps to have a father who is just an exceptional coach like Coach Prime is. But I think he's worked with Tom Brady and maybe Peyton Manning in the Manning Passing Academy. But he still has the skill set that he's had to develop himself. I'm not, saying that he only is at this level because he's worked with those quarterbacks. So that, I think, allows him to go a step further, of course, to hone those skills even more. But on those points, the precision and the touch, he had an uncanny ability with his throws where sometimes there was one play where it was like a 10-yard play. It didn't really do much. I think maybe picked up a first down. They were like inside their own 20 or something like that. And he had the knowledge he had a guy rushing in on him, and he kind of like loosely threw the ball is the best way I can describe it. If I can find the video of it, I'll pull it up. But he just like kind of lofted the ball and put it right into the bucket, right to the wide receiver. Another throw down the sideline for I think 40 yards downfield. He dropped it right in the bucket, right on the sideline where only his guy could get it. And so that kind of combines the power as well. And then there was one throw that he threw kind of backed up again that went over the middle around midfield. And the way the ball just spun looked just crazy to me. I haven't seen a ball thrown like that very often. But also just to have the precision for the pass to go where it needed to go. And then obviously when a quarterback's playing at this level, it's the poise as well and Shedeur displayed that brilliantly against TCU. It's not a defense that's gonna, force five fumbles in a game and rack up like 6 sacks. They're not that level of defense in terms of pressure. But when he was pressured, he had the poise under that pressure to deliver throws, to deliver them accurately where they needed to be, in the time they needed to be thrown, hitting guys in routes, all different types of throws. He is an incredible talent, and I really look forward to being able to watch him play at the collegiate level, at the FBS level especially. What an offensive performance. And then you got a guy like Dylan Edwards, who I think is just absolutely lightning in a bottle. He rushed for, I think, somewhere around like 50 yards, but more so he was an option out of the backfield, catching 5 passes for 135 yards and scoring 4 total touchdowns. So a big game for the kind of all-purpose back. And then defensively, the leading tacklers were Shiloh Sanders. So big game for the Sanders, and then Marvin Ham II. So a huge game for Colorado. I think they deserve to jump into the rankings for sure. I wouldn't be surprised, especially in the media poll, and maybe the coaches too, because you could see the talent that these guys have and just the camaraderie and everything that they have. I could see them jumping into maybe the top 15. That might seem like a crazy jump, but I've seen crazier in week 1. But let me know your thoughts on the Buffaloes. Let me know if you think they can keep this going, if you think it's maybe a little bit of first game motivation with a coach like Coach Prime, just really getting them locked in on that first game, and maybe they drop a couple in a really competitive Pac-12. As I mentioned, went perfect in the opening week, and they looked good really in most, if not all of those wins. All of the teams look good. You've got DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State had a good game on Sunday. And then you have Bo Nix at Oregon putting up 81 points, albeit on Portland State. Mentioned Washington, just a wealth of talent in that conference in the last year of the Pac-12 conference. But final thing, looking ahead to the week 2 action, we've got Texas at Alabama. That's where game day is going to be. It's the night game on ESPN. Fowler and Herbie are going to be calling that one. Big game. I think Alabama handles business in that one. I think it's competitive, but I don't expect Texas to have too much of a shot at pulling an upset in that one. Again, I think, they keep it competitive. They keep, stay in range for most of the game, but ultimately I think Alabama will roll by probably a couple of touchdowns. But let me know your thoughts on week 1 of the college football season and what maybe some of your observations were, what you think the rest of the college football season will look like. But without further ado, this is Peter Burtnett, College Football Talk, signing out. Peace.